market. So, now the important thing is that when you are introducing a camera into the market, there isn't usually only one thing that differentiates the camera from other products. It's usually a combination of different things. So what I will do is, as I'm talking about these two product lines, I will talk to you about a little bit about the market conditions. I will talk about the imaging performance, the form factor or the shape and the size of the camera, the interface, the functionality, pricing, and then also in some cases the capability of the manufacturer is also quite important to make sure that you can bring the camera and satisfy customer needs. So let's jump in. The Grasshopper. Okay, now before I tell you about the Grasshopper product line, I first want to talk a tiny little bit about USB3, because USB3 was first introduced in 2008 by the USB group, like the consumer level USB3 standardization group. And that is when Point Grey first started talking about USB3. And I'm very excited to basically tell you that at the trade show now, there is just about everybody starting to introduce USB3 products, and there's a lot of customer demand for USB3. So Point Grey has been committed to this technology since 2008. In 2009, we introduced the first prototype camera of USB3, which is this blue camera that you see here, and we demonstrated it here at the Vision show. Now, this camera, this form factor here is what Point Grey uses as a form factor to introduce new technologies, and that was back in 2008. Point Grey is one of the founding members of USB3 Vision standard, and we've been in serial production of USB3 cameras for over a year now. We have 8 models that range from 1.3 megapixel to 12 megapixel in full production right now. And we have, and I'm proud to say, more than 1,000 customers worldwide using USB3 cameras. So I guess the point here is there's twofold. One of them is that USB3 is really ready for prime time, and also Point Grey has been committed to USB3 for a long, long time. The camera that you see here is our Fleet 3 camera, which is available in Firewire, USB3, and Gigi. And this is the camera that has the sensors that go from 1.3 megapixel all the way to 12 megapixel. And they're primarily CMOS-based sensors that are in that camera. So the Grasshopper3 that we're introducing is a new platform product that is supporting a variety of CCDs under USB3. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the imaging performance and the sensors that we have selected to put into the camera. And essentially, they're all new high-performance Sony CCDs, some of which you might not even have heard of previously. They range from 2.8 megapixel to 9.2, and they're all quite big in terms of the optical size. Now, to put things a little bit into perspective, how many of you are familiar with the ICX285 CCD? Anybody? It's a 1/3-inch, 1.3 megapixel CCD that has basically been a standard for image sensitivity, or the sensor sensitivity and performance over the last probably 15 years in the machine vision industry. All these sensors basically have better imaging performance than what has been the standard for image performance in this industry. So in terms of quantum efficiency, every one of these sensors is actually better than the ICX285. So we're quite excited about the performance that we're going to get out of these cameras. Not to mention also that we have a high bandwidth interface which can allow you to, for example, get interpolated data, color interpolated data out of the camera, or a higher bit depth data out of the camera as well. And these are not all the sensors. This is a platform that we're planning to introduce other sensors into going forward. And if you'd like to talk about these sensors, please come by our booth, and I'm happy to tell you more about that. So now the form factor, the camera is 44 by 29, so it's slightly larger than smaller cameras that we have. But the reason for that is that the CCDs that go into it are quite large. They go up to 1 inch, and we have made a decision to use C-mount C-mount optics on 1 inch sensors because we feel that it's a more cost-effective way of producing cameras as opposed to going to F-mount. Now, Grasshopper3 is USB3 Vision compliant and is a founding member of USB3 Vision standard. We have made sure that the camera is not only compatible with our own software, but we're actively working with companies like National Instruments and BLOX, for example, to make sure that our cameras are working through the standard with third-party software. And in the International Standards booth, you will see a variety of USB3 cameras, including the point gray cameras running with NI software. Now, it's pretty important to understand what's the difference between the solutions that we provide with USB3 as opposed to some of the solutions that are available out there. And the first thing is that Point Grey has actually developed the link layer level of the camera in an FPGA. So we don't have dependency on a third-party silicon manufacturer for our USB3 functionality. Okay? So if there is any kind of issue that might come up, Point Grey has full control over the actual functionality of USB3. There are chips which are quite inexpensive and easy to use that implement USB3, but they can have problems, and if you have a problem, you basically are using a piece of silicon that is built by a third party, and you have to wait for that third party to actually address the issue. Okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that having been making USB3 cameras for 3 years now or so, we have learned that it's very important to have a frame buffer. And the reason for that is that as much as we'd like to control the end-to-end imaging, it's difficult to control the host where the data is going to. So if the host was going to slow down for any reason, USB3 can flood the host, and you will basically start getting corrupted images and even dropping images. So it's extremely important that you have lots of frame buffer on the camera, and in the Grasshopper3, we're actually providing 128 megabytes worth of frame buffer. And finally, Point Grey provides a monolithic driver that we have implemented ourselves in order to make sure that the data that is coming from the interface and is being put into the memory is handled by infrastructure that we have full control over. So a lot of the other manufacturers will depend on the drivers that are provided by the host controller card. Now that's not to say that you can't use those drivers, but if you want to have full control over it, we recommend using our driver, which we can control. So basically everything from the camera to the buffering to the driver is controlled by technology that is developed by Point Grey. Also, Point Grey we have our own library called FlyCapture, and the FlyCapture library is actually cross-platform, so it works on a variety of operating systems as well as all the interfaces that we have. And we now support Windows 8, and we also support Linux, and USB3 is available on both of those operating systems. And in order to make sure that that we have a full end-to-end solution, we're also we have designed and we manufacture our own host controller cards. So, and that's right there. So, I will go back to the sensors that I started with, and I'll basically introduce the models and the pricing and availability. Okay, so the first model is going to be coming out in Q1 of next year, and the other 3 models are going to follow in Q2 of next year. And the pricing that you see here is basically presented both in euros as well as US dollars. And we believe that the combination of the camera pricing as well as the competitiveness of the USB3 interface is going to make this a very compelling solution for people who might be using camera link solutions to get a lot of data into the computer, or even link aggregation, PoE link aggregation. So just to give you an idea, for about $110 in terms of card and cable, you can get up to 400 megabytes worth of data into your PC, which if you were using a camera link solution would probably cost about $1,000. So, as I mentioned, these kinds of solutions consist of a lot of different pieces. So we have clear demand for USB 3. Point Grey has extensive experience with USB 3. Now we're introducing CCD imagers. We have a standard form factor. We're USB 3 compliant. We have an FPGA link player. We have frame buffer. We have our own driver. We support Windows 8 and Linux. And we have an excellent price. So that is how USB 3 Grasshopper 3 has come together.